Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to another episode where we help you level up your English one fun topic at a time. I'm Philip, your food enthusiast and all-around snack lover.
And I'm Gracie, your go-to guide for all things tasty and educational. Today we're diving into something everyone loves, food. Specifically, we're talking about meal preparation.
Exactly. Whether you're whipping up a quick sandwich or trying a new recipe from a cooking show, understanding the language of food is essential.
That's so true. Cooking isn't just a life skill. It's a way to connect with people, share cultures, and of course, enjoy some delicious meals. But let me ask you, Philip, what's your go-to dish to cook?
Oh, I love making spaghetti carbonara. It's quick, simple, and tastes like a warm hug on a plate. What about you, Gracie?
I'm more of a baker. There's nothing like the smell of freshly baked cookies filling the kitchen. But honestly, sometimes recipes feel like they're written in a secret code, especially if English isn't your first language.
That's such a good point. Words like sauté, whisk, or even a pinch of salt can confuse anyone who's new to cooking in English. That's why today, we're breaking it all down, ingredients, cooking methods, recipes, so you'll feel confident whether you're reading a cookbook or following a YouTube tutorial.
And don't worry, we'll keep it fun and simple. Plus, we've got a little challenge for you at the end of the episode, so stay tuned for that.
Oh, I can't wait. So grab your apron or just a cup of tea, and let's get started with the building blocks of meal preparation. The ingredients.
Let's dig in. Figuratively for now. Actual eating comes later. So let's talk ingredients. They're the foundation of any dish, whether it's a quick snack or a fancy dinner. Philip, what's one ingredient you can't live without?
Oh, that's easy. Garlic. It's such a game changer. You can sauté it, roast it, or even use it raw for a punch of flavor. What about you?
For me, it's definitely eggs. They're so versatile. Breakfast, baking, or even as a quick protein boost. Plus, I've learned so many phrases in English related to eggs, like crack an egg or whisk until fluffy.
That's a great example. Vocabulary for ingredients can be tricky because some words are specific. Like, diced onions means cut into small cubes, while sliced onions are thin, flat pieces.
Right. And then you have measurements. How many times have you heard something like a pinch of salt or a dash of cinnamon and thought, how much is that?
Oh, definitely. Here's a tip. A pinch is usually just what fits between your thumb and index finger. And a dash? Think of it as a quick sprinkle. Speaking of spices, what's your favorite?
It has to be cumin. It adds such a warm, earthy flavor. And a fun fact, the phrase season to taste means you add just the right amount of spices to suit your liking.
That's a good one. And let's not forget liquid ingredients. Words like a splash of milk or a drizzle of olive oil are so common. These are small amounts, but they can make a big difference in a dish.
Absolutely. And if you're new to English, it's a good idea to label your ingredients at home. Write their names in English, like sugar, flour, or salt, so you get used to the terms.
Great idea. Plus, if you're ever confused about an ingredient, just look it up and learn how to pronounce it. You never know when you might need to explain a recipe to a friend or impress someone at a dinner party.
Speaking of impressing, let's move on to cooking methods. That's where the magic happens. Now that we've got the ingredients covered, let's dive into cooking methods. This is where the fun begins. There are so many ways to cook, and each method gives the food its own unique flavor and texture. Philip, what's your favorite cooking method?
I'm a big fan of sautéing. It's quick, easy, and gives vegetables such a nice caramelized flavor. You just heat up some oil, toss in your ingredients, and cook them over medium heat. Perfect for weeknight dinners.
Oh, sautéing is great. But I've recently been loving roasting. There's something about the way the heat slowly cooks the food and brings out all those natural flavors, especially for things like potatoes, carrots, or even chicken. It gets all crispy and golden.
I love roasted veggies. And don't forget about grilling. It's the perfect method for summer. You get that smoky flavor, especially when you're cooking things like steak, burgers, or even veggies like corn on the cob.
Yes, Grilling is such a fun social way to cook. But what about baking? It's one of the most common methods, especially when it comes to desserts. Baking uses dry heat, usually in an oven, and it's perfect for things like cakes, cookies, or casseroles.
That's true. Baking can be a bit tricky with the exact temperatures and times, but once you get the hang of it, it's like magic. I remember when I first learned how to bake bread. Nothing smells better than fresh bread right out of the oven.
Oh, I bet. And then there's boiling, of course. That's the go-to method for things like pasta, eggs, or soups. Boiling is all about getting your ingredients submerged in hot water to cook them through.
Absolutely. And don't forget about steaming. It's similar to boiling, but the food isn't in the water. It's cooked by steam. This method is great for keeping food light and healthy, especially vegetables.
Steaming is a game changer for sure. It helps preserve nutrients, and the texture stays so fresh and crisp. It's a great way to cook if you're looking for something nutritious without losing flavor.
And speaking of flavor, let's not forget about braising. It's a method where you cook food slowly in a bit of liquid. It's perfect for tougher cuts of meat like beef stew or braised chicken, so tender and flavorful.
Ooh, I love braising. The slow cooking makes everything so rich.
Exactly. So, as you can see, there are so many cooking methods, and each one creates a different taste and texture in your food. The key is to experiment and find out what works best for you.
And don't be afraid to try new techniques. Cooking is all about creativity and having fun with the process. Now, let's take all this knowledge and put it into practice with some recipes. Now that we've talked about cooking methods, let's jump into recipes. When you're cooking, a recipe is your roadmap. It tells you what ingredients to use, how to prepare them, and which cooking methods to apply. Philip, do you follow recipes strictly, or do you like to freestyle?
Honestly, I'm more of a freestyle guy. But when I'm trying a new dish, I'll definitely follow the recipe to the letter. The key is understanding how recipes are structured so you can improvise later.
That's a great point. Recipes can seem a little intimidating at first, especially with all those instructions. But once you break it down, they're really just a series of steps that help you put everything together.
Exactly. A good recipe will always start with the ingredients, sometimes listed in the order they're used. And then, it'll go into the steps. Each step is usually clear and action-oriented, like chop the onions or heat the oil in a pan.
And one thing I love about recipes is the way they tell you how to combine those ingredients. For example, you might see something like, mix the dry ingredients together first, which helps prevent clumping or uneven texture later on.
Oh, for sure. That's a big one when baking. You don't want to throw in flour and sugar all at once. It's about layering the ingredients properly so everything cooks evenly. I also like when recipes include things like cook until golden brown or stir constantly. Those tips make a huge difference.
Totally. And speaking of those tips, some recipes include timing and temperature instructions. These are crucial, especially for dishes that need precision, like roasted chicken or even cookies. If you don't get the timing right, things can go from perfect to burnt in seconds.
Oh, I've been there. I remember once I made cookies and thought I could multitask, but I ended up over-baking them. Now I set a timer for everything. No more guessing.
Smart move. And don't forget about serving suggestions. Some recipes include ideas for how to plate your food, what sides to serve, or even how to garnish. It makes everything look so professional.
Definitely. And a big part of understanding recipes is the measurements. Things like a pinch of salt or 1 cup of flour. It's important to know the basic measurements so your food comes out just right.
Exactly. And if you're cooking in a different country, sometimes you'll see recipes in different units like grams instead of cups, or Celsius instead of Fahrenheit. It's always good to have a conversion chart handy.
Great tip. So, when you're starting out, don't stress if things don't turn out perfectly. It's all about practicing and getting comfortable with following the recipe. Once you get the hang of it, you'll feel more confident to play around with flavors and techniques.
100%. Cooking is all about learning, experimenting, and having fun with it. So grab that recipe, trust the process, and enjoy the journey. Now that we've covered recipes and ingredients, imagine we're both in a cooking class, learning a new dish together. What would that be like, Philip?
Oh, I love the idea of being in a cooking class. It would be so cool to have a chef guiding us through the recipe step by step. I think I'd want to make something like pasta from scratch, kneading the dough, making the sauce, and learning those techniques.
That sounds amazing. I think I'd enjoy making sushi. I've always wanted to learn how to roll it properly. It looks so intricate, and I'm sure having a pro showing us the ropes would make it much easier.
Sushi is a great choice. I can totally see the class setting for that, with the chef explaining how to cut the fish, prep the rice, and roll it just right. And you'd get to learn the perfect technique for dipping it in soy sauce without overdoing it.
Right? It's all about those little details. But what I love about cooking classes is the environment. Everyone's working together, chopping, stirring, and asking questions. You might even get to share a few tips with your fellow classmates.
I think that's the fun part. It's not just about cooking, it's about connecting with others, learning new skills, and maybe even getting some new ideas to try at home. It's so much more hands-on compared to just watching a YouTube video.
Absolutely. And in a cooking class, the instructor gives you instant feedback. Like, if I'm holding the knife wrong or overcooking the onions, the chef can step in and show me the proper technique right away. It makes learning feel so much more personal.
Yeah, I love that immediate guidance. You can ask questions like, how do I know when the sauce is the right consistency? Or, what's the best way to chop these herbs? And get real-time answers. It's super helpful.
Plus, I feel like you get a sense of accomplishment when you finish the dish with everyone else. You've not only learned something new, but also made a meal from scratch that you can actually enjoy eating with others.
I couldn't agree more. And who knows, maybe after the class, we can exchange recipes and tips with our classmates. It's a great way to build a little cooking community.
Exactly. A cooking class is such a great experience, whether you're a beginner or already a pro in the kitchen. It's about learning, experimenting, and having fun with food.
Well, I think I'm ready to sign up for a cooking class. I'm excited to get started and improve my skills.
Same here. Let's get our aprons on and start cooking. Now, let's get creative, Philip. How about we come up with our very own recipe? We'll mix and match ingredients, choose a cooking method, and put together something fun. It's a great way to test everything we've talked about so far.
Oh, I love that idea. Okay, so let's start with the base. How about a stir fry? It's super versatile, and we can add whatever ingredients we want.
Perfect. Stir fries are easy and quick. We'll need a protein, like chicken or tofu, and some veggies. What do you think?
I'm going for chicken, but I think we should add some bell peppers, carrots, and maybe some broccoli. We could even throw in a little ginger and garlic for flavor. What do you think of that combination?
Yum. I'm all in for that. Now, we need to think about the sauce. A stir fry isn't complete without a good sauce. How about a soy sauce base with a bit of honey for sweetness? And maybe a splash of sesame oil for that nutty flavor?
That sounds amazing. And we can add a little chili for some heat. Not too much, just enough to give it a nice kick. What do you think about adding some cashews for crunch?
Oh, yes. Cashews will give it a nice texture and extra flavor. All right. So we've got our chicken, veggies, sauce, and cashews. Now, let's talk about cooking methods. Since we're stir frying, we'll need to heat a pan or wok over high heat, right?
Exactly. We'll toss everything in the pan, starting with the chicken to get it nice and golden, then add the veggies and cook them until they're crisp tender. At the end, we'll pour in our sauce and toss everything together until it's coated.
I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. We'll serve it with some steamed rice or noodles to soak up all that delicious sauce. Now, here's the fun part. How would you describe this recipe to someone else?
I'd say a savory stir-fry with tender chicken, crisp vegetables, and a sweet, spicy sauce topped with crunchy cashews. Does that sound good to you?
I love it. It's simple, flavorful, and easy to make. Plus, you can swap out ingredients depending on what you have at home, so it's really versatile.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of creating your own recipe. You get to be as creative as you want. Who knows? Maybe this will be the start of our signature dish.
I think we're onto something here. So, the next time we cook, we should definitely give this recipe a try.
I agree. And I hope you all try making your own recipe too. It's a fun way to experiment with new flavors and cooking methods.
Absolutely. Whether you're following a recipe or creating your own, cooking is all about having fun and exploring new flavors. Now, let's spice things up a bit, Philip. We've got our recipe, but did you know there are some fun idioms and expressions related to cooking that we can use while we're in the kitchen?
Oh, I love idioms. They make everything sound so much more interesting. What have you got for me?
Well, let's start with something simple. How about too many cooks in the kitchen? Ever heard of that one?
Oh, definitely. It means that too many people are involved in something, and it can cause confusion or problems. Like when everyone has their own idea of how the stir fry should be made, it can get a little chaotic.
Exactly. It's like if everyone tries to give their opinion, you end up with a recipe that no one really agrees on. But sometimes it's better to have one chef leading the way.
Haha, true. Another one that comes to mind is bring home the bacon. I always thought this was a phrase about food, but it actually means to earn money or support your family.
Oh, that's a good one. So, if you say, I'm going to bring home the bacon, you're not talking about frying up breakfast. You're saying you're going to work hard to make money.
That's right. Now here's one I think you might like. The icing on the cake.
Ooh, I know this one. It's when something extra special makes a good situation even better. Like if our stir fry was delicious, but we decided to add a side of crispy spring rolls. That would be the icing on the cake.
Exactly. It takes something good and makes it even better. All right, what about bite off more than you can chew?
Oh, that's a classic. It means to take on more work or responsibility than you can handle. Like, if we tried to make a three-course meal when we only had time for a stir fry, we'd be biting off more than we could chew.
Right. And you'd probably end up stressed and not enjoying any of it. And speaking of stress, there's also a tough cookie.
A tough cookie. That means someone who is strong and resilient, right? Like, if you're in the kitchen handling a really difficult recipe, but you don't give up, that's being a tough cookie.
I love that one. And finally, let's end with a recipe for disaster.
Oh, that one's easy. It means something is going wrong from the start. Like, if you forget to buy key ingredients for the stir fry or accidentally burn the chicken, you've got yourself a recipe for disaster.
Definitely. But the good thing is, with a little patience and creativity, we can always turn things around in the kitchen.
That's true. And learning these cooking idioms not only helps us in the kitchen, but also makes our everyday conversations a lot more fun.
Absolutely. So whether we're in the kitchen or just chatting, these idioms add flavor to our language.
Well, Philip, we've covered a lot of ground today. Ingredients, cooking methods, recipes, and even some fun idioms. But as we wrap up, there's one more thing I want to touch on.
Oh, what's that?
I think cooking is such a powerful way to connect with others. It's more than just about making a meal. It's about sharing something meaningful. Whether you're cooking with family, friends, or even strangers, food has this amazing ability to bring people together.
I couldn't agree more. Cooking is like a universal language. You don't need to speak the same language to enjoy a delicious meal or bond over making something together. It's all about the shared experience and the joy of creating something from scratch.
Exactly. And think about how food often plays a central role in family gatherings, celebrations, or even just casual hangouts. It's a way to show love, care, and creativity. The act of cooking becomes a form of communication.
Absolutely. And it's also a great way to learn about different cultures. For example, I've learned so much about different cuisines just by cooking dishes from around the world.
That's so true. And cooking can be a way to preserve traditions. Whether it's your grandmother's famous recipe or a dish that's been passed down for generations, every meal tells a story.
Oh, for sure. I think one of the best ways to connect with others through food is to share a recipe or even cook a meal together. It's such a simple yet meaningful way to create lasting memories.
Exactly. And whether you're an expert chef or just getting started in the kitchen, everyone has something to bring to the table. Cooking is one of those activities that everyone can participate in, no matter their skill level.
Well said. So, whether you're making a quick snack or preparing a big family dinner, remember that cooking is more than just following a recipe. It's about creating moments, sharing stories, and connecting with others in a way that words alone can't always express.
That's right. And just like we've learned today, cooking doesn't have to be intimidating. It's a journey, and it's all about having fun, trying new things, and enjoying the process.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, whether you're making your first stir fry or perfecting a family recipe, keep experimenting, keep learning, and most importantly, enjoy the ride.
Well, that wraps it up for today. I hope you're all feeling inspired to get in the kitchen and start cooking.
And remember, the next time you're in the kitchen, don't just focus on the ingredients. Focus on the connections, the memories, and the joy you're creating.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.